This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Let's talk about the topic of today because I think it's a good and interesting topic that came in. It was a listener suggestion. And the question was, how do you integrate Aiden and Quinn into your lives now?
Yeah.
Which I think is a different question than how do you integrate the loss into your lives now?
Totally.
So I kind of see it as of like, how do you continue on that relationship with them?
Yes.
So I've spent some time thinking about this. Do you want to go first? Should I go first?
You go first. I've also been thinking about it, but go
So
ahead.
I would say the first thing that I do is I talk about him a lot. And I talk about his loss a lot, not in a way I don't think it's in a way that brings the conversation down, but I will refer to it almost like you refer to your time in college, where you would say, when I was in college, I studied this.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, when Aiden died, I started painting. And I find that I want to keep his name on the tip of my tongue, but I also really want to normalize it amongst my friendships. That this is something that I do, and this is normal. And I would say for every time I say his name, maybe like, let's say I say it 100 times, maybe one person responds. And if that, people don't really respond. They just kind of like nod and smile. But I continue to speak about him. And that to me feels very, very, very important.
Can you talk about like some specific ways you talk about him, and I'll give some examples? Because I feel like this episode could be really helpful for a brand new griever who is like, what are, like, I want to be really super tactical and specific about the ways we do this. Like, what are some ways that you talk about him? And I'll say some that ways that I talk about Quinn too.
Well, I think there's a blessing and a curse being in this time where everyone around me is pregnant or has a new baby. The blessing is that there's a lot I can talk about because I can say when I was pregnant with Aiden X, I gained 27 pounds, or when I was breastfeeding with Aiden, it was horrible. Or I can say my delivery with Aiden was whatever amount of hours. There's so many entry points because everybody is talking about it. The painful flip side is that everybody is talking about their alive children and I'm talking about a dead child. But I almost wonder that if, in 10 years when we're all talking about our kids' soccer leagues, if I'll feel so sad because there won't be any time for me to speak about him. So naturally, I bring him up in that way. Another thing I do is if I feel safe, I will sign his name on cards. So if it's somebody who I know, and knows my story, and let's say I'm writing them like a holiday card, I will sign Aiden's name in that card. And I just make it a practice. We're planning for Thanksgiving. I sent a list of the names for my niece to make place cards, and I included Aiden's name. I don't know what she's going to do with that. She probably went to her mom and said, what am I supposed to do with that? But that's not my problem.
That's your 9-year-old niece's problem.
My responsibility is to continue to make sure his name remains in the family, to talk about him at an amount that feels comfortable and include him in family things. Would I RSVP his name to like a synagogue gala? No, I wouldn't. That would be weird. Yeah. But when it's in my family and we're talking about every other member of my family, I would include him. I think sometimes of whether or not I would sign my dog's name. If you're going to sign your dog's name, which let's say you're sending a holiday card, that would be a very normal thing to do, then you can sign your dead baby's name.
Yeah. I think that's a really good, that's really helpful. So I think that's so if you would sign your dog or cat's name on the card, or you would talk about your dog or cat in the context of your family, also mention your dead child.
That's what I would say.
Another specific tip I have is in a work context, because I don't have any living children, but people talk about their kids all the time. And so for me, I definitely don't talk about my dead child even remotely as close to as frequently as people talk about their living children. But I try to tell myself if there is a context where people are talking about children, I give myself permission to talk about how I also have a child. And I don't, like I said, at work, I don't get into it, but like, I do try to think to myself, like, if someone's going to mention their alive child 10 times, I give myself permission to talk about my dead child at least one time. Like, I just feel like everybody wants to talk about their children. You should feel allowed to talk about your children. If people are uncomfortable with that, that's on them. And then sometimes, depending on my mood, the discomfort actually, like, in a weird way, comforts me, because I'm like, yes, welcome to how bad this is. Like, join me in it. Like, yeah, it's awkward and it fucking sucks. Hello.
Yeah.
But I do think your point about like when your friends and everything are having babies, that's definitely a time I talk about Quinn very frequently, is in the context of my friends' new babies. Like, oh, I remember when Quinn did XYZ, or oh, like that's a thing that I remember from my pregnancy, blah, 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 blah. And just like acknowledging that it happened, it was real, and it resulted in a baby who died.
I would say another thing that I do that I think is really helpful is establishing traditions. And I would encourage you to establish traditions now, like sooner rather than later, because I think people are probably, if you're just starting your loss experience, people are probably like most tuned in and empathetic now to you. And it's a little bit harder as time goes on to establish a new tradition. I also think in terms of establishing traditions, like people are looking to you for guidance. And so even if I'm not like wild about the traditions we've started, like I am wild about some of them, but I'm not wild about all of them. But I feel like it's very important for me to like continue them on. Not for me. I remember my son every day, and we've spoken about this, but as a way for the people around me to connect to Aiden. So, like you were talking, like I plan a little birthday party for him, and I do it with the number one goal of it being for my niece and my nephew, like for the kids in my family, because I see them as probably the ones with, in some way, the most open mind to it.
Yeah.
And I also see it as the ones that I'm worried the most will forget about him. And I see it as like I hope that they will continue to remember Aiden even after I die. And so like, to me, they're kind of like this next generation. And my children, of course, also will be raised with it. They're not old enough. Like my daughter's not old enough for it just yet, but it's important for me. The adults, not so much, but the kids very much so. Like I want to engage them. I want to get an arts and crafts project. I want to normalize loss for them now.
Right.
Because I know that they will lose people in their lifetime, or pets, they'll lose someone. And I want to show them how to grieve in a way that's open and comfortable.
And I think a lot of the adults in your life, this is sad, but I think for a lot of the adults in our lives, the context of thinking about Quinn or an Aiden is grief, sad. Wow, yes. Judith is a mess. Like we have to take care of Judith. Whereas for your niece and nephew, it's like, Aiden was a person who exists. He's my cousin. Like, yes. I love him. Like I love, I was going to say your daughter's name. Like I love my other cousin, Like I
don't think it's that simple, but they have kind of like an imagination that's still flexible.
Yes.
Wait,
like have we told the story about your nephew? I don't know if you want to share this, but when your nephew when you guys found the scooter.
Okay, no, but I don't know if I've told it, but I'll say this, but that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I was with my nephew, and I was telling him how Aiden sometimes sends me signs. And I was telling him how on Aiden's death anniversary last year, my sister had been telling me in the morning that she wanted to get like adult scooters for some reason. And then that very day, an hour or two later, on the side of the road, there was an adult scooter. Like someone was giving it away in front of their house. So I told my nephew this, and I was like, Aiden sent us a present. He sent us the scooter. And my nephew, you could see like his eyes were like blown away. He was like, oh my God, I can ask for things and then Aiden will send them to me. And like he said, like, tell me more. And I told him about like the time when he sent dolphins and then like the more I can reinforce, it's not like a Santa Claus thing where I'm like teaching my children that there's a mythical character, but I feel like they're receptive at this age to this idea that like, there's higher beings and there's things we can't fully grasp. And I want to capitalize on it now. So
the whimsy and excitement of what you can't see.
And And I can also tell that they're still like a little uncomfortable with it. Like they don't really know, they're not like 100% solid in it, but I see that as like an important thing to perpetuate. And so yeah, we started some traditions, and some of the traditions I've mentioned before, like we do this birthday party. Another thing is I like to make like a slideshow, and my husband and I continue to add pictures to that slideshow. So my husband has this Google folder of all of Aiden pictures that he started when Aiden was alive, and he adds, like anytime I send a picture in the family WhatsApp group of like his grave, like my husband will add it to the Google folder. Even like with time going on, or last year's holiday project that we did with my niece and nephew, like we took that picture and added it to this folder. And so when I make the slideshow, it's important to show that our relationship with Aiden has continued on even after he died. I like seeing how the different decorations that we put out of his grave age and wear with time, and which ones have stayed. And before I was in a pinwheel phase, now I'm in a sun catcher phase, and like to me that shows the passing of time by showing how his grave changes. So I do that. And also, like, my family sponsors things in his memory, so I will include pictures of like the sponsorship notification in that slideshow. And then in terms of other things we do to keep his memory living on, like we sponsor like a kids program at our synagogue at Aiden's birthday and Aiden's death anniversary. Like every year we bring snacks and sponsor it. And I've never been to it because well, there was a tricky timing thing. And also I was like, she doesn't need it. She has like 12 birthday parties, Yeah. Aiden doesn't have 12 birthday parties. So I think another thing we do is we sponsor things every year. We like annually sponsor things. And I think that's really important too, because I think that like spreads our commitment to the community. I don't want our community to ever think we've ever forgotten about him either. So those are some like the traditions we've employed.
I don't have any traditions, like big traditions. Can you think of any that I have? I don't think I do. I don't do anything like that. I don't like sponsor whatever. I don't have an annual birthday party, right? Like, can you think of anything I do like that? I have tons of traditions that I do like personally myself, but I don't have any like community-based.
But Alina, you're not a community-based person.
100%. I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
I don't think I have any.
I don't know. I think that's I know you had a cupcake for Quinn's birthday this year. Did you have a cupcake? You had a cake last year. You had a hedgehog cake.
Yeah. So, okay. So when I think about like much smaller, more personal traditions that I have with Quinn, so every year on his birthday, or around his birthday, I've put a little pinch of his ashes somewhere meaningful to me from that past year. I don't know that I'm going to do that forever because that's a lot of random places to have his ashes, but that is what I've done each year. On his birthday, I do, have cake for him that I eat myself, which feels sad. Um, I don't know that I have a lot of like recurring annual or monthly traditions. Like some people will celebrate their baby like every single month on the day of their birth, and like I just don't do that. I don't have any like real time-based things for him anymore.
Well, okay, here's another thing that I know that you do. Well, you will
Yeah.
do. But another thing I do is it's very important for me to integrate his toys, his books, his clothing into our lives now. There are some things that are just for him and they sit in my closet and they're in his boxes. But some of his toys I've given to my daughter, and all of his books I've signed his name and given to my daughter, and we read them together. But like I like seeing his playmat out. I like seeing his like his picture all over my house. I like seeing his toys integrated with her toys. Someone gave us this like little sports bag with his name on it. And like my daughter puts all of her toys in this little sports, it's a little bag and it says his name on it. And I like that because when I parent her, I talk about him all the time. This was Aiden's book. Do you want to put this in the Aiden bag? This morning, she was like we have this picture album of him and we open it up and we talk about him. He's on the refrigerator. There's this one picture in our house that falls down every single day. It's like of him. It's because they're cheap and I should just get new frames. But I tell my daughter all the time, I said, oh, Aiden's picture fell. I integrate him into our life because I talk about him. He's on the walls. He's included. His name is around the house. I think that's really important.
Yeah. When it comes to his stuff, I completely agree with you. I look forward to the day that I can use a lot of his things with another baby. I also have, for each of the 2 babies that have been born to my close friends since Quinn died, I've given each of those babies a specific piece of his clothing, of Quinn's clothing that he wore that I picked out specifically for that baby. So my friend Julia's daughter got a hat of Quinn's that he wore. And then my friend Leah just had a baby boy, and Leah's son got this like jumper that has hedgehogs on it. And a couple of Quinn's books. And that felt like, so my friend Leah just had this baby, and that's been actually really challenging and could be a whole episode in and of itself. How hard that has actually been for me. It's been really beautiful and wonderful and special, and also really hard. But one of the things I did after that baby was born, before I even knew his name or had met him, was I went through Quinn's books and picked out a couple that I wanted to give to this new baby, and that felt like really special. And I love thinking that this baby is going to grow up knowing that, you know, these 3 books were his cousin Quinn's books, you know?
Yeah.
And then I also have, like you were saying, I have pictures of Quinn in every single room in my house. There are a couple of rooms that I don't have pictures of him, but there is something in the room, like his footprint or something of his. There is something that I look around the room and see him in every single room in my house. My husband and I were talking about Christmas card photos for this year, and he's not a big Christmas card person, but I've sent one every year, including these last 2 years when I've been not, without a family. And it's important to me that Quinn is represented in the family Christmas card picture. Now, I'm not going to like hold his picture up in the family Christmas card picture, but like I want either his ring visible or like something that when I look at the picture, I see that he's there. And I don't necessarily need it to be super explicit for everyone to know, but I want there to be a visual representation of him in family photos that we take.
I 100% do the same. I almost feel like it's a little wink to myself.
Exactly.
A little wink. Whether it be a necklace or this ring I have that has his name on it, or it's just a little something. So I see him in the picture because I anyway see him in the picture. So that's another way. Yeah. Family pictures. I always just include like a little wink to myself to remind myself that he's still there.
And when we talk about reminding ourselves that he's still there, like I mentioned already in this episode, this ring that I have, I will touch this ring all the time. Like I'll sit there fidgeting. I'll find myself touching it. My husband has pointed out that when I'm feeling really sad and missing him, like often I'll be sitting there and I'll be absentmindedly, not even thinking about it, touching this ring. And it feels like a really nice little grounding thing that is, it's literally like his actual ashes are in this ring and it's on my body all the time.
Yeah.
And it feels really nice to have that, like to touch and hold and just be with him. I also like, it was really important to me that in our wedding photos, I actually wore this ring on the hand, like on the finger next to my engagement ring. So pictures that our photographer took of our wedding rings would have Quinn's ring as well. I have a ring that I bought when Quinn was born that I actually wear on my wedding ring hand with my wedding rings, because so the order is this Quinn ring and then the wedding ring and then the engagement ring. So like the Quinn ring is closest to my heart, because before I was, my husband's wife, I was Quinn's mom, and I'll be Quinn's mom until the day I die, so that's definitely jewelry. You have a lot of Aiden jewelry.
That's another thing I do. And then another thing that I do is I do this podcast, which definitely feels like a way to integrate Aiden into my life. And it's a way that I can breathe the energy, like I can breathe energy into this world. Like I can give something of my heart. My loving energy has a place to go. And I think a lot of people feel like helping people makes them feel close to their child. And I love that I get to help people who've been through loss. And there have been a few people who've lost children in people I've known from school or whatever.
In your orbit,
just in my orbit. And I've tried, not perfectly, but I've tried to embrace them and carry them in my wings. And I feel a lot of meaning and purpose, and I feel Aiden's life continuing on through meeting these other lost parents and supporting them in whatever way I can.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way about the podcast. I can't believe I didn't think about that when I was prepping for this episode, but it didn't even occur to me. But that is so true. It's probably the time of my week that I speak his name the most, and just having this space feels so important and meaningful to me. And I sometimes think like I have all these like ideas of things that I could do to help people like bereaved parents. And I'm like, Alina, you have the podcast. Like you're already doing it. Like,
Yeah.
like I need to keep like grounding myself and like, I'm already doing a thing. Like I don't have to do
Yeah.
like 10,000 other things. So like advice for new grievers, I would say like, find a thing. that you can
And also, if you don't want to start a podcast, because you don't want to start a podcast, I helped support people who lost children even before I had the podcast. Like I found, they found me, I found them, wherever.
Me too.
And I paid it forward just by checking in constantly, by just being a sounding board when they need. So you don't have to have a podcast to help people. You don't have to start a nonprofit to help people. You can just help one person.
Yeah.
You can, I don't know, you can find them in a lost group. But I was going to say this other thing, which is that another thing I do, and this is so subconscious, but I feel like it's very important for me, is that I carry the stories of other babies who've died. And to me, that feels like that's very, very important to me. I put in my calendar like the death anniversaries of everybody's baby. The minute that I find out about it, I put it in my calendar to remember. And so like it'll be like a random Tuesdays, and it'll be like a Havas day. Like I put it in my calendar so I remember them. And to me, that feels like a continuation of Aiden's life, and it feels like something I can do on a consistent basis to connect to him. I remember all the people that I imagine him with, hanging out with in heaven or wherever he is. And so I collect their stories. And my mom was at the cemetery, and she was showing me Aiden's grave and the new sun catchers, which have been amazing success. And I'd be happy to link that for anyone, because they're a new toy that I found. They're not a toy, it's just a good accoutrement to a grave
decoration. Yes,
a great decoration. So then I asked her, I said, could you show me the new babies? Because there have been some babies since Aiden died, and I know the ones immediately next to him, but I don't know all of the ones after that because I moved at some point. And so she was showing me, this bit. There was Aiden, and then there's Ari, and there's Catherine, and then there's Ava, and then there's Rosie. Like she was showing
Addison.
Addison's the other direction. So these were
okay.
the new babies.
Got it.
And I was sitting there with my mom, and I was like, yes, that baby died of cancer. That baby was a stillbirth at 40 weeks. That baby was a stillbirth at 39 weeks. That baby was a cord accident. That baby was a home birth accident. That baby was, that little kid was whatever. I try my best to remember each baby's name and their story to some degree. I'm not perfect in any ways, but I care and I want to know. And for me, that is a way to continually touch base with my loss.
Yes. And I really, really, really believe that all these babies whose parents I'm meeting, like those are Quinn's friends. Like he's not going to have the opportunity to make friends in life, but I do feel like every time you and you're talking, Judith, like I honestly, like Quinn and Aiden are obviously best friends. Like there is like no way that they're not, wherever they are. And then all these other babies too are so important to me. And like you said, like I have such a connection. It's so funny because like we have a ton of people who we talk to on Instagram, and there are certain babies that I really have a really strong connection to. And I don't know what it is. Like there's not always a reason, but there is like one baby, Avery. They look a lot like Quinn in the pictures that I've seen of them. And there's a lot of, I don't know, there's probably like 5 or 6 specific babies. I'm not going to name them all because I don't want people to feel like I'm not naming their specific baby, but like there are just some that I'm like so attached to, and it feels really good because I think like even if not all of those babies' parents are attached to Quinn, like some people out there are attached to Quinn, and it just makes me feel good to know that someone else is thinking about him, and I want to be that person for those other babies,
We want to know, we care to know your baby's name, and we care to know your baby's picture. And I think it's mostly because we believe that our kids are friends somewhere. And if we're connecting here, they're connecting. And also because I feel like when I see your beautiful baby, I know you. I know who you are. I know a little bit about the listeners because I know their children. And, I went to St. Louis recently, and somebody saw my alive daughter, and they hadn't met her because no one has met her. Whatever. I brought her to St. Louis, and and somebody came over to me and I was like, oh, and this is my daughter. And they're like, oh yeah, I saw her and I knew she was yours. Like I didn't even see her. I didn't even like see you guys together. And my kid is blonde. And so we don't look very much alike, but she was like, I just saw this spark of you in her and I just knew that she was yours. And that's how I feel when I see your babies. And that's how I see when I know other people's babies who's lost children. It's like, I know you because I know your kid. I see a spark of you in them. And so like for me, I just think I feel connected to Aiden and I perpetuate his memory and his life and his legacy by knowing other babies.
That makes a ton of sense. I feel like, I mean, I almost feel like there's like two kind of categories. We talked a lot about the like bigger things, the community things, the external things. And I also think there's just like a lot of ways I keep Quinn alive in my heart. And one of those ways is just like I talk to him constantly in my head and sometimes out loud constantly. When I had first lost him, I talked to him while I was brushing my teeth. That was like one little bite-sized time of day that I did every single day that I could talk to him. Now I talk to him more free form all the time. I ask him questions and wait to see if he'll give me answers, which he doesn't usually, but sometimes he does. I also light candles for him all the time. I light a candle for him on his urn if I'm missing him, or just in general to keep him present. My husband will sometimes light candles on his urn, which means a lot to me. Like last night I came into the room and he had lit a candle on his urn and it really felt like, I honestly felt like I walked into the room and Quinn was there. And it was like, it was so special. I actually should tell him that meant a lot to me. I didn't even mention it, but I really should tell him that it meant a lot.
That is so sweet.
I know. It felt like such a relief because like, it was just the tiniest little smidge of feeling like he was there. And it felt so good.
Yeah.
You know?
I told someone recently that I feel Aiden's presence when I'm in places that are like a vast, wide expanse, like looking out for an ocean or looking at a valley or looking like anytime I kind of see the nature in a wide view, I definitely feel him. So I feel like I try to put myself in positions where I just feel a piece of that spark. You know, he doesn't have ashes at home, so that wouldn't work. But like, I can imagine what you're saying, like where you just walk in and you feel just like one billionth of what they mean to you.
Yeah. I mean, the other day you were having a really bad day and you were like, I don't know what to do. Like, and I was like, you got to get yourself to the ocean. You've got to figure out a way to get yourself to the ocean. That's going to help.
I did not, by the way.
I know, but you got to do it. It'll help.
But I will. Where did I go? I can't remember. Oh, I know where I went. I went on a walk.
Got to get out in nature.
Oh, there was water somewhere. I went somewhere when you said that, and I was like, I felt at peace because there was water. You know what? There was water on this walk.
Good job. Well, anyway, this was rambly. What a chaotic episode this was.
I think it was good, though.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Will it be hard for you to edit?
Totally, but that's okay. I can make it work.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!